So he mentions in this second section the eclipse of the true church, which, by the way, folks who have read your book probably recognize that phrase as coming from the Secret of Our Lady of La Salette, the 1879 version, where she says, quote, "The church will be in eclipse." And
Yep.
I read that just before we started in the
Yep.
appendix of one of the appendices of your book. I think it's page 284.
I'm
I
looking it up.
highlighted that
I'm
one.
getting it right now. Yeah. Do you mind if I read that?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Let me pull it up real quick. So this is paragraph 31 in the Secret of La Salette. This is our Blessed Mother speaking. The church will be in eclipse. The world will be in dismay. But now Enoch and Elias will come, filled with the Spirit of God. They will preach with the might of God, and men of goodwill will believe in God, and many souls will be comforted. They will make great steps forward through the virtue of the Holy Spirit and will condemn the devilish lapses of the Antichrist, end quote. And he's referring here to Revelation, Apocalypse chapter 11, of the two witnesses that come in the last time. So what we know from Our Lady of La Salette is the eclipse of the church comes before the final tribulation in which Enoch and Elias appear in Revelation 11.
Right. And I think it's also important to note that, that is probably the full eclipse that Our Lady's talking about has not come yet. So if we think it's bad now, but it's probably going to
Well,
get
Matt,
worse,
I've
it's
been
hard to
thinking
say.
about this. Let me throw something out there. You can shoot it down or modify it. Eclipses are not instantaneous. They're
Exactly.
slow.
As Archbishop, yep.
They're slow. And so I was thinking, like, well, maybe the eclipse just begun. I was thinking maybe the eclipse began in 1917.
Possible.
Maybe the eclipse takes 100 years where we go, or even more, and we go, and it's the church is fading and fading and fading, and it's all at a certain point you cannot even see the church. That
Right.
doesn't when there's an eclipse, the moon doesn't disappear and stop existing. You just can't see it.
Right.
So the church will never cease to exist, but there may come a point in time where we look around and we say, where is the church? And the answer
Right.
is, I don't see it. I don't know. That's scary to think about. But that's the
It
vision of
is.
an eclipse, is it not?
Absolutely. And Archbishop Vigano says the very same in the next paragraph of this section. He says, just as happens in nature, this eclipse does not take place all at once. It passes from light to darkness when a celestial body inserts itself between the sun and us. This is a relatively slow but inexorable process in which the moon of the anti-church follows its orbit until it overlaps the sun, generating a cone of shadow that projects over the earth. And he has in bold in his transcript, we now find ourselves in this doctrinal, moral, liturgical, and disciplinary cone of shadow. But he emphasizes it is not yet the total eclipse that we will see at the end of time under the reign of the Antichrist, which I think is what Our Lady is referring to in La Salette. But it is a partial eclipse, he says, which lets us see the luminous crown of the sun encircling the black disk of the moon.
Yeah.
But regarding how this eclipse got going, he definitely identifies it with modernism. He says,
Yeah.
the process that led to today's eclipse of the church began with modernism without a doubt.
Yes.
The anti-church followed its orbit despite the solemn condemnations of the magisterium, meaning prior to the council, which in that phase shone with the splendor of truth. But, he says, with the Second Vatican Council, the darkness of this spurious entity came over the church. And he goes on to say, whoever then pointed to the sun, deducing that the moon would certainly obscure it, was accused of being a, quote, prophet of doom. And I immediately thought of John the 23rd's
Yes.
opening address at the council, in which he says, let's see, I've got the quote here, I think, in the daily exercise of our pastoral office, so this is John the 23rd, October 11th, 1962, we sometimes have to listen much to our regret to voices of persons who, though burning with zeal, are not endowed with too much sense of discretion or measure. or in more modern or more recent times, we would say their manner and tone is a little bit off, right?
Right, right.
Give a throw out to Father Altman. So they got great zeal, but their manner and tone is a little off. It's a little too extreme.
Right.
John the 23rd says, in these modern times, they can see nothing but prevarication and ruin. And he goes on to say, we feel we must disagree with those prophets of doom who are always forecasting disaster as though the end of the world were at hand. What's interesting about that quote is he actually we're constantly hearing nowadays about human fraternity
Right.
and all that kind of stuff with Pope Francis, but he's not the originator of that kind of language in even the New World Order. Here's what John the 23rd went on to say in that very same speech.
Good, because I was about to say it.
In the present order of things, divine providence is leading us to a new order of human relations, which by men's own efforts and even beyond their very expectations are directed toward the fulfillment of God's superior and inscrutable designs. And everything, even human differences, leads to the greater good of the church. Unbelievable.
Yep.
That is Fratelli Tutti
Yep.
in seed form. That is the document on human
and let me
fraternity.
give you another quote, John 23rd. But I see mankind is entering upon a new order and perceive in this a divine plan, end quote. Using the language of new order.
Yep.
One of the things I do in infiltration in that chapter, it's chapter 16. He says prophets of doom. And I asked the question this quote is from 1962. In 1962, pretty optimistic time moving into the 60s, who were the prophets of doom that he was talking about?
Right.
And so you ask yourself, who is the most famous person on planet Earth, Catholic, who said anything about doom in the past 50 years from that point? It's the Fatima children.
That's right.
The only people who fit the description that John the 23rd is describing are the Fatima kids. And that's why I can't prove this, but I identify the prophets of doom as the three Fatima seers.
Yep.
And if it's true that just 3 years before this, John the 23rd opened the third secret of Fatima, which we know he did, and read it and said, this is not for my time, or this is not for my pontificate, he is, in a way, rejecting the doom of the prophets.
Right. And ultimately, the prophet par excellence is Our Lady herself in this regard.
Good point.
Yes, because it didn't match with his rosy picture of the world and all the wonders.
And by the way, if y'all are interested in Third Secret, Matt and I have done a lot of videos on Third Secret. Go to Dr. Taylor Marshall channel and just put Matt Gasper's Marshall Third Secret. We've done a lot. Also, Chris Ferrara. There's a lot of good info on it because Matt and myself and Ferrara, we don't believe that the full Third Secret was revealed in the year 2000. We think we got lied to and tricked by the hierarchy. That might be a big shock to a lot of people, but you have to realize what's been going on for 20 years. They've been trying to deceive the laity.
Yep.
And now we know.
And you and I did a show on that earlier this year where Archbishop Vigano revealed, I think it was in late April or early May, that he agrees now with that with that thesis.
Who in their right mind who has actually spent 30 minutes studying it believes that the third secret was revealed? I've never met anyone who studied it who's like, yeah, it's exactly what the church said. No.
Essentially, those who hold that position are wanting us to believe that members of what Vigano calls the homosexual current in the hierarchy, we just need to take their word for it, like Cardinal Bertone and Cardinal Sodano, the man who covered up for Father Marcel Maciel, the Legionnaires of Christ. We just need to take their word for it that the full secret has been revealed, despite all of this, mountain of circumstantial evidence to the contrary. Folks need to go read Chris Ferrara's book, The Secret Still Hidden. A very important book for that topic.
Very good.